Hey everybody, this is Dr. Joe Borio with this week's Thought Flash. And Thought Flash comes from actually a term that B.J. Palmer would use. He would get flashes of thought from universal intelligence, and that's a lot of the writings that he had in the green books. That's why they're fragmented, because they're fragmented thoughts that he would have in trying to understand or communicate, if you will, or open himself up as a receiver to universal intelligence. One of the challenges I see in our profession, by not understanding the philosophy, we forget that we practice a principle. You know, chiropractic isn't a profession first, it's a principle first. The profession is birthed, if you will, from the principle. You're supposed to practice the principle of chiropractic. And what unfortunately happens is too many people, we don't practice the principle. So what happens is you've got this profession that's operating on its own, and there's a subluxation, isn't there? There's a subluxation between operating under principles and the rules that govern, and now it's operating on its own. So all of a sudden it starts making decisions that aren't in conjunction or congruent with the principle. So then we start thinking, hey, you know what? Our job is to survive. How does the profession survive? Well, we need to evolve. We need to change our scope of practice. We need to start adding drugs or surgery. We need to start adding things in some way. Most of those come from a lack of confidence, clarity, a passion, vision, and as a result, the profession, or a part of the profession now, is looking to do things that are distorted from what the principle really should be. That's a problem with chiropractors. We feel like somehow inadequate because we can't help every person with every ache, pain, or ailment. Well, I think the problem is why your role isn't to help them with every ache, ailment, because the reality is the subluxation doesn't necessarily cause all those aches and ailments, or who knows how long it took for that to manifest, or who knows if that isn't an effect of 14 other things that preceded it that caused that ailment. We don't know. You know, what we do know for sure is if the nervous system isn't able to communicate, the body doesn't work as well as it's supposed to. So your job is to relieve the pressure and allow the body to communicate as well as it can. And that's because you want those mental impulses, you know. So when you look at principle number 1 or principle number 18, what you realize is that there's a organization to energy. An example I use is Legos. If you have Legos, or if you have a teenager, for example, you know, and you walked into his room, which is normally a disaster, and you walk in and everything's picked up, neat and clean, you're not going to say, geez, that just happened to happen accidentally. Everything arranged itself. Certainly, you know, your teenager probably didn't do it. So you would know that someone came in and organized it. That just doesn't happen. If I have a box of Legos and you came home and you had this beautiful city built with trees and cars and people and structures and roads, you wouldn't say, geez, you know, somebody kicked the box over and it just accidentally happened to organize itself in that form or shape. And it arranged itself that way. No one would think that. So when you look at a human cell, when you look at a baby, when you look at life, when you look at even inanimate objects that aren't living, you realize that even the hydrogen atom, nothing could have organized itself that way. When we look at the law of entropy, which states that things go from a higher level of organization to a lesser level of organization, that doesn't fit with the Big Bang Theory. If everything blew up, if those Legos exploded, they're not going to necessarily come together in a highly formed, arranged structure of intelligent, intentional life in cells. The law of entropy would say it would make it even more disordered. So some of those things don't fit. We have to sit back as chiropractors and understand that our job has to start first at the major premise, that something created, if you will, or there's inherent design in everything that governs how it operates. That's critical. And then that will always lead towards health. In other words, innate is always trying to make things healthy. Universe and innate intelligence are always working together, if you will, to make things work as they were governed and designed to do. That's critical. The brain communicates to the body through impulses. So one of the examples I used is if you wanted to send, people call it signals or impulses, I ask my members in the practice, what's in the impulse? What's in the signal? And one of the examples I use is an envelope. So if you have an envelope, right, the brain is a sense sending the envelope to a body part. So that would be the nerve signal, if you will, right? Or the nerve impulse. What's in it is the mental impulse. So if I open the envelope, what's in there are instructions. There's instructions on the nerve impulse. So when I open the envelope, there's an instruction telling your liver, it's a message, like a telegram. Hey, make this, don't make this, make a little more of this, make a little less of this, coordinate this activity. That mental signal is being made by the upper organ, if you will, or birthed by universal. But why? Because it's reacting to something else. So the body has its own, if you will, life has its own design. Cells will work without communication to the brain, but they start working on their own, separate from everything. Again, part of the orchestra starts working on its own, separate from everything, and therefore tone, vibration, that overall health of coordination of the body is lost, and that's when dis-ease or loss of coordination occurs, and if it stays there for a long period of time, the body gets sicker. Another example I often use is if you're talking to somebody on a cell phone. Imagine if a family member called you and they said it's about your dad, and you grab the cell phone, you're like, oh my God, what's going on with my mom or my dad or a loved one? And the conversation go, well, Joe, I am something, okay? Talk to you on Thursday. You would be like, oh my God, I can't get a signal. What happened? What was said? What was the information that was said? And that critical message that somebody was trying to communicate to you. And not only that, after that you receive that message, your actions are going to change. You'll do something different. Maybe you'll try to get hold of somebody else. But everything you do will depend on the information you got or didn't get from that message. Right? Now, that might have been a message where your mom said, oh my God, your father had a heart attack. Might have been a message, hey, your father just won Publishing Clearinghouse. You have no idea at this point. And each one of those messages would change your action. God forbid something bad happened to one of your loved ones, you'd rush on a plane, I'm sure, and go up and try to be with them. If your dad or mom won the Publishing Clearinghouse, you probably wouldn't run up there and give them, but you'd want to contact them. Congratulations, oh my God, tell me the story, tell me what happened. That's exactly how your body works. That's how critical every single one of those messages are. Every message that comes from the brain that goes to a body part is that critical. Your liver cell, your kidney, your immune system, every part of your body is relying on that little flicker of data, that little flicker of information, that mental impulse, that envelope with all the instructions on it to tell it exactly what to do. And if it doesn't get the right information, or it gets part of the information, that cell doesn't do exactly what it's supposed to do. Even better than that, a part of that cell, maybe the replication of the cell, maybe the little lysosomes or mitochondria, parts of the cell that are relying on that data, they don't do exactly what they're supposed to do, and therefore they do what they think they're supposed to do, or they start relying on their own intelligence, their own innate, separate from the rest of the whole organism, and as a result the body starts to get dis-ease, loss of coordination, and then the body gets sicker. Why it's critical to understand that is you have to understand each one of those messages are that important. And if you can look at each one of those messages as that important, then you'll realize how significant the vertebral subluxation is. How significant is it when the spine shifts, even a little bit out of alignment, causing pressure or a change in the conductivity of the hardware, the infrastructure of the nerve, therefore the communication, those bits of data can't get to the body as well as they're supposed to, and in a very short amount of time, that body part's going to start to develop dis-ease, and in a very short amount of time, if that stays sustained, then we're going to develop sickness, disease, and illness. Once you understand that, once you really start to get your head around that, then you'll understand how important it is to have the spine checked to keep the nervous system working as well as it can, and to keep the messages flowing and the data and the mental signals flowing through the body as well as it can. That's why the major premise starts everything. The major premise in principle number 18, they give you an awareness just by the inherent gift within all of us that intelligence, that intention is there. And my job isn't to change it. My job is to make sure it can communicate. Now, that being said, it doesn't lessen the value of nutrition or exercise. It doesn't lessen the value of many times a necessary medication or surgery. It doesn't mean that that should never be there. You know, we all can sit and say, well, geez, you know, these medications are sick or poison or whatever. They are. I realize that. But at the same time, there are some people we realize that would die if they didn't put that in them at that period of time. We have to realize that. But whether that exists or not, it has nothing to do with what I do as a chiropractor. My job as a chiropractor, the major premise is to make sure that intelligence can flow through the body. That's the clarity. Who can benefit from a better nervous system? Everybody. An infant born from mother, the second that infant comes out, should be checked to make sure their communication is as good as it possibly can be. And grandma and grandpa, who are 98 years old, maybe a week from their last day of life, they need that to make sure that their last messages, their last moments are the full expression of human potential. That's the job. And understand, by you becoming the best chiropractor that you can be, by you doing exactly what you need to do and what you're supposed to do every day, that changes everyone you adjust. That changes, therefore, their reaction or their interaction with everyone else that they come in contact with. And as a result, it's a ripple effect. You change humanity essentially by practicing chiropractic. And it's a beautiful thing. You got to realize the human species is the sickest species on the planet. And chiropractic, meaning the principal aspect of chiropractic, involves itself before there's a sickness and disease so that the body stays healthy. And as a result, that becomes part of a solution to the sickness and disease in our culture, mentally, physically, and from a physical ailment. Everything resides and can be almost washed away fully by practicing the principle of chiropractic. The moment we go into allopathic, we then become reactionary. We start to increase our value when there's already a lot of symptom, sickness, or disease, and our worth, our self-worth, becomes dependent on the absence or presence of a symptom. In other words, if they feel better, they come, or they'll leave. If they hurt, they come. If they don't feel better in so many adjustments, they're going to leave. So the reality is the patient, the member, doesn't understand what it is you do, and therefore there's this confusion. Now we've become a profession that's separate from the principle, and not only that, then we start to practice separate from each other, and then what starts to happen is we start thinking, hey, I'm struggling in practice. It's going to be easier for me if I prescribe a drug, if I can do a surgery, if I can do some medical procedure. It'll be easier for me, and now we become part of the problem. And that's what's happened in the profession. We're becoming part of the problem. We're becoming part of the reason, or contributing to part of the reason that society is so sick, as opposed to stepping back and going, wait a minute, some of what these great leaders of our past have developed and given their life to give to humanity is a way to say, hey, listen, humanity is sick in so many ways. If you read the World Health Organization, what's it say? It's not just the absence of symptoms, it's physical and social, your social well-being and your physical health. All of those aspects in humanity are sick. Chiropractic offers us a path back to working in conjunction or in harmony with universal and innate intelligence, allowing every aspect that the World Health Organization defines as health or wellness, defines all of those to be reconnected, allowing humanity to be healthier. Chiropractic is a solution to the sickness and disease that resides in humanity. And therefore, as a result, if you practice principle chiropractic, you actually give a gift not only to this generation, but every generation thereafter. Guys, I love talking about chiropractic. I hope to see you. We're going to be in Dallas, Texas on November 9th and 10th. We're bringing in one of the best speakers on philosophy today. That's Dr. Rob Sinnott. Dr. Pete Lombardi, part of Chiropractic Consulting, he's gonna share on Friday night with our Chiropassion philosophy extravaganza. It's going to be great. And then we'll work all day Saturday with me on helping you understand how to run your practice better, sharing some science to help you with your clarity and certainty on chiropractic, and really to hit a lot of philosophy, again, with Dr. Rob Sinnott. It's always an honor for you guys to turn in. I know I rambled on a little bit more today. May your innate always flow with 100% of universal expression, and know that I love you for loving what we all love, guys. Have a great week serving. I'll talk to you next week.
Best friend gave me the best.